Hey everyone, welcome back to part two about what is the mark of the beast. Today we're going to be talking about, as I mentioned in the last video, who is the beast. We already answered what the mark of the beast is, and now let's kind of on the the characteristics and what to be on the lookout for. Now let's talk about who is the beast, because this is the mark of the beast, and it talks about the image of the beast and worshiping the image of the beast. But now let's talk about who that beast might be. And or same thing, characteristics, and then what's in store for those who do take the mark and those who don't. Okay, so to answer who is the beast, that's probably what we should do next. Let's go to Revelations chapter 17, verses 8 to 14. Revelations chapter 17, verses 8 to 14. And don't remember, as I mentioned in the last video, always have a Bible ready whenever you're going to watch any of my videos, because it's going to be the best way you're going to get the most out of this information, because I just like to pretty much go into the Bible. So verse 8, the beast that you saw was and is not and is about to ascend from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the inhabitants of the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will be amazed when they see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come. Before I even go further, let's pause there, because that says a lot, right? It talks about that this person is and then is not and then is to come. There's a lot of interpretations on that. It could be some political person who maybe someone that was president and then didn't and then came back. This could also be connected to what we read before about it being wounded by the sword yet lives. So it could be that they passed and then came back. And then could be still political connected, and then they go back into power. There's so many different things here, but here's a good characteristics to be, pay attention to who fits these characteristics, right? This calls for a mind that has wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains on which the woman is seated. Also, they are seven kings, of whom five have fallen, one is living, the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must reign only a little while. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an eighth, but it belongs to the seven, and it goes to destruction. And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received the kingdom, but they are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour, together with the beast. These are united in yielding their power and authority to the beast. They will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him are called and chosen and faithful. You have to read what was being spoken about before we got to here, because it was talking about the great whore and the beast and Babylon. And again, a lot of these interpretations of these kings and kingdoms are of a lot of kingdoms that have passed already who had power. So it could also be talking about a kingdom that had power and that is going to rise back to power. A lot of think that has a lot to do with the Roman Empire. I think it does as well. Anyway, so yeah, you see some key things here about this beast that are very important to know and study on. Let's go on to Second Thessalonians, and matter of fact, before we go there, Second Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. There's a lot of different names for this beast, right? It's been called the beast, very famously known as the Antichrist. We'll get into that name in a second. The lawless one, prince to come, king of countenance. It's just so many different names. So biblically, you can see that this is someone who has to arise. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I'm talking about Old Testament and New Testament. This is someone who will rise to power and rule the world for a limited amount of time, 42 months. 42 months, this person will have power to do away with the saints. But I believe from what I've read in Daniel that he will start to have power first when he signs the treaty, which we'll get into that in a second, for 7 years, right? But from what I understand, and don't hold me up to this, but this is what I'm understanding, is that in the second part of his reign, the last 3.5 years, is where he really starts to reveal how he's not good, right? The first 3.5 years he'll be more peace and peaceable, and people will be fooled by his great works. But then the second half of his tenure, because he knows he only has 7 years, he really starts to persecute Christians and a lot of other things. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will destroy with the breath of his mouth, annihilating him by the manifestation of his coming. There we call him, it's called the lawless one. You can also go to, and I mean, I don't have to read all of these, but I'll tell you some of the scriptures so you can study on your own. Daniel chapter 8, verses 23 to 25. There he's called the King of Countenance. It talks about how his power will be mighty. Again, it mentions how he'll stand up against the Lord. I love how often that they mention him, but in that same sentence, they talk about how Jesus is the one who's going to destroy him. So nobody else will, because he'll have a lot of power given to him by Satan. He'll have all the power of Satan in this earth. And yeah, it'll nobody can defeat him except Christ. But I love how they always mention that personal favorite there. You can also go to Daniel 9. Matter of fact, this one I do want us to read together. Daniel chapter 9, verses 26 to 27. Here's where it talks about what I just mentioned, as how long he's going to reign and kind of when that begins. 9, verse 26 to 27. After 62 weeks, an anointed one will be cut off and shall have nothing. That was Jesus. And the troops of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Its end shall come with a flood, and to the end there shall be war. Desolations are decreed. He shall make a strong covenant with many for 1 week, and for half a week he shall make sacrifice and offering cease. And in their place shall be abomination that desolates until the decreed end is poured out upon the desolator. So there's also some interpretations that this is talking about an event that has already occurred in Israel and with the temple and the Israelites and the Jews. So, I do think that's also talking about that, but I don't think that means this isn't talking about the end times, because there's been time and time again that God has mentioned an event, and then it paralleled. It was one event that was the same, and then another one that fit the same description, because it's incredible how God works. So here the key thing is he talks about that strong covenant that he makes for a week. And if you've studied the prophecies of Daniel, you know that week he's really talking about 7 years. And then he says that for half of the week he shall make sacrificing. He shall make sacrifice and offering cease. So just so you guys understand, so when it happens, you see it. When you see it, you understand it. That he will build this third temple, or be part of that moment in history for the Israelites, and bring peace in the Middle East. And then for about 3.5 years, he's going to let the Jews come and sacrifice to God in the temple. But then at halfway through that week, or halfway through the 7 years, he's going to stop. And he says, no more sacrificing to God. And then from what I've understood, that he claims to be God and that people need to worship him. And that's when it gets really bad. So be on the lookout for that. Other scriptures it talks about, and this is really important. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. I want to make something very clear here, which I feel that those who don't take their time to really study the word may be confused on this, and I want to make this clarification now. which is this title of Antichrist, right? So there's a lot of talk about that. Oh, but the Antichrists have already come, and the truth is that yes, a lot of people are Antichrist, and the spirit of the Antichrist has been around since the time of the Word. But the Antichrist, or the beast, is one individual who will rule on earth during the last 7 years of earth. So, first letter of John, chapter 2, verse 18. Children, it is the last hour, as you have heard that Antichrist is coming. So now many Antichrists have come. From this we know that it is the last hour. See, there is that Antichrist that is coming, but many have come. More importantly, go to 2 John. Here, let's clarify that a little bit better. 2 John, chapter 1, and verses 7. 7 is fine. So 2 of John, chapter 1, verse 7. Many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. Any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist. So there you see again, it does make very clear that anybody who doesn't confess with their mouths that Jesus Christ came in the flesh and died for us is an Antichrist, right? So that's one definition, and that's very clear. But I do not want you to get confused that means that there isn't going to be one Antichrist or one individual who is really, Revelation calls the beast, the first beast, that will rule the world for a 7-year period, and that'll be the last ruler in the world that Christ destroys, and he will persecute many Christians. So let's go on to the next scripture on next topic, which is what's in store for those who take the mark of the beast. As a matter of fact, I'm going to stop this video here and then make one last video just on what's in store for those who do take the mark, and then what's in store for those who don't. Hope you guys are enjoying this series. Catch up with you soon.